Welcome to the Lovecars on the Grid podcast, your global motorsport roundup with me, Tiff, Needell and Paul Woodman.
Welcome to Lovecars on the Grid, your global motorsport podcast roundup. What a weekend of motorsport, but first and foremost, we love all sorts of sport and we're both football fans. Congratulations to the Lionesses, the Indian ladies football team, beating Germany at Wembley. Crikey, the men's team couldn't do that. Well, they did back in 1966, but that's long forgotten. So congratulations to them, and a bit of history was made last night. So
yes.
Well done to
Great result. Well done, girls, women, ladies.
Ladies, yeah, you've got to be careful what you say nowadays, but well done to the team. And breaking news, because we record this on sort of lunchtime-ish on a Monday, typically, and Fernando Alonso is going to Aston Martin. We'll come on to Formula One. There's also
another team.
Another team, exactly. There's also F2, F3, W Series, and you'll never guess who won W Series.
No.
Probably won't, actually. But there was IndyCar, NASCAR, back home in the UK, not killed. There's BTCC, which was absolutely crazy.
Wild.
Formula E in London. And there was a bit of two-wheel action as well.
Spa 24-hour race. There was just so much going on. Motorbikes in Czech Republic, so much going on. But now all we're talking about is Alonso.
What do you think about this week? It wasn't exactly a sort of shock horror, was it? He's going to Fernando Alonso is going to Aston Martin, which you didn't know. So it wasn't exactly the biggest shock in the world. But how do you feel about it?
Oh, bored. I'm bored. The trouble is, the boring thing is that Fernando still drives his heart out like a teenager, but he's always moaning and whining. And he was on the radio warning. So maybe Alpine knew he was leaving, because he was having a go at Ocon slower than me. And he's always got something to say, and which is great. He's got his opinion, but I'm just a bit tired of the Alonso personally. He's still brilliant, and but the trouble is for me is I want these drivers to still race. I want to see them in sports cars. World sports cars is about to kick off big time. We've got Ferraris and Porsches, and we've already got Peugeots and Toyotas, and that's where I'd love to see Alonso go and take his fans with him, and just a change, because I just think we need more change, more newness in Formula One each year than the same. I mean, it's a great thing for Aston. I mean, perfect for Stroll, for him to give his son someone that if he beats him when he's a world champion, and if occasionally little Lance beats Fernando, it'll be I'm beating a world champion. But it was the tweet I got. I mean, there's PR about it. I retweeted this one. This is apparently from Alonso, although I was thinking someone else wrote it. He says, "No one in Formula One today is demonstrating a greater vision and absolute commitment to winning." What, that Aston Martin to employ...
No, he definitely wrote that. Fernando, you can tell he wrote that.
So you commit yourself to winning by putting your son into one car who's a fairly average, very good driver, but has his moments, but is not a world championship winning driver. And then you put in an old world champion who keeps on picking the wrong team for most of his career. Bless him, Fernando.
So Fernando normally writes, "Hello, mates." They all say mate. Have you noticed? All the foreigners say mate a lot. So
hello,
that
mates.
Sounds a little bit more too articulate. And of course, this breaking news came on the back of some breaking news last week that we haven't even mentioned, because it seems like old news now, that Sebastian Vettel is retiring from Formula One.
Well, that's the seat. Yeah, that's the seat. Didn't we get it in a week ago? It happened after a week ago.
I know.
We have to talk about Sebastian retiring then before we... that's again, it's... I'm happy he's gone, but I'm sad he's gone, because he was a brilliant driver and he was still, getting the good results when things worked for him. But what percentage of effort he was putting in every weekend, you're never quite sure, because he went up and down the grid, and Lance beat him quite often, and qualifying and backwards and forwards. So I'm delighted that, and I hope that Seb will now look at Le Mans, look at other racing, and come back and do more things. But I just want more fresh faces. I think I used the word more young faces, and I got in big trouble on Twitter, because, they're not young, 32, 33, they're not old. Sorry. Well, Fernando's 40-something too, isn't he? So I shouldn't use the word young faces. I want more fresh faces, more changes, more excitement down in the lower rankings.
You and I both, we mention it every single week on this podcast. So Seb, maybe he's going to hang up his boots, but I don't think so. I think he'll go into sports cars. Or
hopefully.
Yeah, which would be good to see. A good character. I wasn't a massive fan, because I can't cheer for Germans, but
honest.
Well,
You
that's
just
fair,
owned
isn't
up.
it?
You can't say things like that.
Why
Can you,
not?
Paul? Well, I don't know. You've just upset everybody now.
No, I don't want to upset anybody.
I'm
just
not
being
going
honest.
into that now. No, you've
No,
really
in this
I'm sorry.
world,
No,
why
you
can't
get
you
away
be
with that.
honest? It's so you offend one person, then everybody jumps on it. I don't know. I would prefer the British drivers to win.
But I
So
agree.
what?
All right.
So what? Okay,
Let's go
move
to
on
quick.
swiftly.
Let's move on quick to the Grand Prix itself, which was actually very, very entertaining. Hungarian Grand Prix. You know, we often look at that track. It's produced some real processions in the past, but obviously the race was good because qualifying was a mix-up, and this is what quite often happens: that the good races come from a weird grid. And of course, it was very weird with Perez having another off weekend and moaning about a lap was just taken away and then it wasn't. And then he ended up another 11th. Then he make Q3. Then, of course, Max breaking down, to end up 10th on the grid. And then the other end, George and Mercedes having this amazing weekend and taking pole position with an incredible lap. The amazing thing about that pole lap, very unusually, none of the sectors were purple. So someone individually had been quicker through each sector, but he just greened it. And what a fantastic result.
It was such a shock, wasn't it? He was, I think, more shocked than anybody. You saw 2 Ferraris out there, that's it, 1 and 2, and then boom.
Especially it was green. You saw 2 green sectors. You thought, okay, he's going to beat himself, but he's not going to beat the others. And Sainz ahead of Leclerc again. So certainly Sainz is coming on stronger and stronger at Ferrari.
Or Leclerc's completely rattled.
Well, or Leclerc's. I think it's more Leclerc's going through a bit of decline.
Well, let me tell you,
Carlos.
Charles Leclerc, I'll give you a stat that is just mind-blowing. In his last 8 races, he has finished on the podium the grand total sum of once. In the last 8 races. It just puts into perspective a little bit, doesn't it?
It's a driver, if things had gone slightly his way, he should have won Monte Carlo Grand Prix, he should have won his home French Grand Prix, and he should have won many others.
He should have won yesterday, or certainly been second.
Well, certainly should have been up there.
And we'll come on to the Ferrari meltdown in a minute, because it was a meltdown. But let's
the only shame, just on qualify, was Lewis. The other, his DRS didn't work. So that was a shame. We could have had 2 Mercedes up there at the front, and Lewis then, as Max did, spent the whole race climbing back through the field with great effect.
You say that, but Lewis he got a phenomenal start in the actual race, and so he's right up amongst it straight away. Got past sort of Ocon and Alonso, the 2.
The Alpines
straight away.
Lando again fourth. Lando's always up there, best of the rest, getting whatever opportunity he can.
Daniel Ricciardo, I say every week, the loveliest man on the grid, the funniest man on the grid, most entertaining man on the grid, has to leave because he's just completely outclassed by Lando week in, week out.
And he'll be the man most upset by this morning's news of a certain Spaniard taking the Aston Martin seat. I'm sure Daniel saw that as a possible opt-out area.
Yeah, but then you got Alonso's old seat, haven't you? Well, surely Hulkenberg's got to come back into the mix somewhere. He was,
because Alpine will take Piastri, because Piastri's Alpine's,
which I'm delighted for, by the way.
So that gets Piastri in. So then there's the McLaren seat to be discussed, which I think will go to one of the IndyCar drivers at the moment. Or Alexander Albon's been mentioned there, hasn't he, as well? Maybe being promoted up to McLaren. That would be interesting. I'd like to see that happen myself. Lots of interesting who's going to be in McLaren from now. Otherwise, I think all the seats are pretty settled, really, apart from Haas. I don't know what's going on there.
People that aren't performing. But Hulkenberg, he outqualified Perez, and he was better than Perez in 2014. He was better than Sainz in 2018. He's consistently outperformed his fellow drivers, who are now.
Can I just point out here to all our German listeners that Paul is now promoting a German driver that he does like. So there you are. It's not across the board.
I have many German friends.
There you go.
Sprechen Sie Deutsch? Ich heiße Paul. And I have German girlfriends as well.
All right. Okay, we'll get on moving. But I don't know. We can't have a Hulk back. I don't think that's a bit. I agree. I'd love to see him. He's a great character. He's quick, and he maybe deserved better cars during his career. But no, he can't come back. Sorry,
okay, so
can't have that one.
New, younger, fresher faces coming in.
Or Albon promoted, because I still think he deserves. He's had a messy few weekends with Williams. He hasn't really done himself that much good at Williams recently.
Latifi's giving him a run for his money now.
Well, whenever it's wet, Latifi seems to have a soft touch, or does well in the rain, but he needs to move on to IndyCar or somewhere.
But can I just say, if you want to go on about the missing seats again, great. But what a masterclass from Max in the actual race, because that boy's matured all of a sudden. The start. So for those of you who didn't see the start, Max Verstappen normally would just push his way through, and expect everybody to get out of his way. He bided his time the whole way. Really mature drive from Max, and he's completely changed. He's 80 points in front. He's not going to lose a championship. He's won his second championship already. So
he managed to have a little spin and win. He was looking so good out there. And of course, the team made all the right decisions, that were the right tires at the right time. Whereas Ferrari, I always, straight away, I should have tweeted it and been clever. Because when they put on a second set of yellows, I thought, whoa, hold on a minute. So that means you've got one more stop and you'll be committed to going to another tyre. And if that second stop coincides with still 30 laps to go, you can't put the reds on because they won't last. So you're committing already to go to the whites, which if they hadn't done it, if they'd gone to reds or whites in the middle, they could have quickly got the whites off or changed back.
Tiff, I think that's the least of their worries. It was shambolic. And how he can come out into the pit lane afterwards and say, oh yeah, but we just didn't have the pace because of the weather. What are you talking about? You're just embarrassing yourself.
It's from such joy at the beginning of the year at Ferrari. We all like Ferrari. We love the Italians being happy and smiling and cheering on their tifosi. But yeah, it's just, they were stuck with those tires, especially because they'd seen Alpine go out on the whites. See, the whites was to many teams. To be fair to Ferrari, a lot of teams thought the whites would be the way to go. They thought they'd fire up all right. And I think maybe when they saw Alpine struggling, they thought, no, that's just Alpine. We'll still stick with our white.
But the track temperature was 14 degrees cooler when they went on the whites. When Alpine were on the whites on Friday, on the race day, the track temperature was 14 degrees cooler, and they still tried to go on the whites. But just the whole thing, just trying to undercuts, overcuts.
I know. Well, they got too obsessed with that. But they would have been better off staying out on that second set of yellows for a lot longer. Okay, might have lost a bit of ground, and then coming out on the reds at the end. It's easy sitting here afterwards, but it did seem bizarre what they were doing.
We've all got a PhD in hindsight, but just at least don't go for two risky strategies. At least go for one solid strategy, one of the drivers.
Alpine putting them both out on whites again was surprising. Why not put one out on yellows and one out? It is amazing how these decisions, us at our TV critics, we can sit at home thinking, why are they doing that? It's madness, But it was a great race. The race was good because we had, for the first half at least, we had George battling with the Ferraris. Meanwhile, Max and Lewis, creeping up towards them, which was sort of an exciting development going on. But it's just, as soon as you saw the Ferraris put the white tyres on, you thought, oh, no, it's all over. Max is going to win this now. They've shot themselves in the feet with both barrels.
George has found Lewis has found a little bit of form as well, hasn't he?
Yeah.
And George, by the way, I got a little bone to pick with George, because George comes across as this perfect English gentleman, and when he's got these pre-recorded things on Sky News, kick it out, and we don't agree with that. It's always so proper. Then you hear him on the radio, goes, "You're a mate, what's going on here?" And his accent is completely different when he's in the heat of the moment. So I think George is putting it on a little bit for the camera when he's like the quintessential British gent. Well, that's the way he wants to be portrayed anyway.
Big star of the future, though. Big star. We've got a lot more George Russell in the future.
we certainly have. But Lewis has done well, and Lewis has almost put George in his place, even though George is still ahead of him on points, give or take. And of course, Mercedes has now narrowed the gap with Red Bull in the Constructors' Championship. So there's nothing in it.
Nothing in it.
Sorry, not Red Bull. With Ferrari. I beg your pardon.
Ferrari.
Yes, sorry, not Red Bull. Red Bull are home and dry. Red Bull are home and dry. Ferrari could turn up for the next. Could forget that we got a break now for the summer, and they could turn up and still lose the race in 5 weeks' time. Red Bull are home and dry, but it's very interesting now between Mercedes and...
What's the next F1 race? I'm not sure myself. I haven't got my fixture list.
I'll get it.
They're on a break. They're on a break.
Yeah.
We'll move on to Formula 2 then, because it was good. It was good Formula 1. In fact, the whole weekend. In fact, let's go back a week to when...
Tiff, one bit. I'm so sorry to interrupt you, but I have to mention Formula 1. One last thing as well, that it looks like Porsche are investing into Red Bull and looking to buy about 50% of the company, which will just... that would be amazing for the sport.
We've known that for weeks.
No, That is breaking.
You just interrupted my flow.
Come on, Formula 2. That's much more interesting.
No, not Formula 2. I was just about to go back to a week ago when I debated this idea of, where would you rather be at the Hungarian Grand Prix or this brilliant weekend in Indianapolis with IndyCar on the Saturday and NASCAR on the Sunday. Because I somehow thought that'd be more entertaining racing. I should have poll done on Twitter. It was quite close. 53% would rather be in Hungary, or some said it was because Budapest was such an exciting place to go to. Like 48% would go to America for that double header weekend.
48% and 53%.
Or 42, 48. Anyway, I couldn't have been more wrong. I apologise for even putting the tweet up. I mean, it was so much better entertainment at the whole weekend, and not just the Formula One, because the Formula 2 and Formula 3 we had really good racing, and it was fascinating. Again, although we had the sprint race, Jack Doohan, who's seems to be a specialist at winning sprint races, because he was 10th quickest in qualifying, which put him on pole position for the sprint race, which he duly won. But Théo Pourchaire, the French kid, he's back on form. He'd sort of had a bit of a lapse. He was always the pre-season favourite. He qualified fourth, I think, but he came through to win the main event. And he's now just 21 points behind championship leader, Brazilian Felipe Drogovic. So Théo Pourchaire coming back to the fore. But the star, actually, of the Formula 2 was Enzo Fittipaldi. None of these, I think he's a direct son, because I've been sons and nephews and Fittipaldi family filling the lower formula for so long. I don't know who was which one. But Enzo Fittipaldi, he qualified ninth, which put him on second on the grid for the sprint race. And he finished third. So he thought, well, yeah, that's sprint race, reverse grids. Well done, Enzo. But in the main event, he stayed out longer on, I think it was the reds or the yellows, I forget which colour they was on. And he came from ninth on the grid of the main race, so really good second place. So maybe we do have another Fittipaldi for Formula One coming, although it might be a one-weekend bleed. But Enzo Fittipaldi, star of F2.
We might be seeing Fittipaldi next Monday. In fact, we're going to have to record this from Germany next Monday. That's very exciting. Yeah.
Which Fittipaldi's in Germany?
Well, who drove a Porsche Le Mans car? Fittipaldi, or was it not Fittipaldi? Obviously, there's you.
You've got a lot of lists of names, but I don't think Emerson. He might have driven the American series, IMSA. I think he might have raced a Porsche IMSA, but I don't know. Formula 3. Now, Formula 3 race was also brilliant, and that's because it was wet. It was fascinating. It's actually, they overtook like NASCAR, I'm going to tell you now. Because at NASCAR, the big thing is if you go up high, you can keep a higher speed round, you can cut out of the big banking. So NASCAR, for 5 laps, the overtaking excitement, the bloke dives up the inside under braking, gets half a car length ahead, and you have to clear the bloke that's up high before you can then pull up and take the racing lines. You often get this, takes about 4 laps of the guy coming up the inside, getting a bit ahead, but then dropping back as the corner exit speed is better for the higher one. And because it's wet, and all this wet line all these kids use, the karting line, it was discovered. You had the kids out front would take the wide line, the grippier, not oily tyre line in the wet. And then the guy tried to overtake, they kept on diving up the inside and sort of getting half a car length ahead on the inside, but then the guy on the outside with a better grip to accelerate out of, then taking the position back again. So it was fascinating all through the field. They're all diving up the inside and then losing out. It was just really entertaining racing. And one thing they do in NASCAR to help this is that they're now putting this sticky grip surface in one of the 3 lanes on some tracks to encourage people to go in the less speedy lane because it's got some grip more. So it made me think that maybe in single-seater we should have some corners like those in Hungary where you do put a grippy line round the outside to give more grip if you take the long way round. I mean, it's just an idea. I know it's an American idea, therefore Formula One would hate to copy it, but maybe there's something here. Because they did try this banking idea in Zandvoort. They thought they'd put these banked corners, it would replicate that. The quicker line is the longer way around, which of course isn't traditionally. So instead of putting banking up it was tricky, maybe put a little grippy surface around the outside of some corners. You heard it first here on Lovecars on the road. Anyway.
So a couple of weeks ago it was leaf blowers, and now it's
leaf blowers for getting rid of debris. So yes, so in the F3 race, which was so much fun, as I said, the Brazilian Chao Colette won the reverse grid rate, and the Russian, although he's not a Russian, he's driving as a neutral, Alexander Smolia won the main event. But the main event started on wet and dried out. And so we had an amazing race with Zach O'Sullivan, the Autosport award winner, who qualified a very lowly 22nd, starting 22nd, switched to slicks with about 5 laps to go and was lapping 10 seconds a lap faster than the leaders.
Wow. And
he came through, I don't know where he came out, when he got his slick. I think he came out at about 20th place after his pit stop, but he finished 4th, right behind Ollie Behrman. Another British driver was 3rd. So a lot of entertainment in the Formula 3s, thanks to the conditions mainly. And how often do we say this? When the conditions are different and varying, we get better racing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or if you put some grippiness round the outside line, you've heard it here, works in NASCAR.
Find your own grip. You don't want.
And of course, W Series. And yes, W Series.
Who won?
She didn't win.
Jamie Chadwick won 7 in a row.
Beaten. Bad qualified, I think about 5th, and Alice Powell was on pole. Another veteran, you might use the word veteran of W Series, Alice Powell's won before, was Jamie's biggest challenger, I think, last year, wasn't she? But she's had a miserable year this year. So she'll be delighted that she's finally come through and had a win. But again, not proving much to the rest of the world because they're just the regular W Series, the ones that are always up the front of the grid. There was one, I think it was a world first happened in W Series. I'm not sure of this, but Jess Hawkins in the untimed practice, in morning practice, because they're all going track limits, the usual track limits going on at Hungary. So, having been warned a few times, they actually put her in the naughty girl class and she was stuck in the pit lane for 5 minutes. Yeah.
This was in practice here.
For such obsessive use of track limits, they put her in the naughty girls class and made her park up for 5 minutes. Well, that's a world first, a new regulation, but I've never heard of that being done before.
I've heard it on track days. Go and calm down. Go and get yourself a cup of coffee and just calm down for a little bit. But never in an FIA event like that.
So then we go over to America, the IndyCar. And I did cross my fingers when I'm recommending it was a good one, because that Indianapolis road course doesn't ever produce good racing. I don't know why. It's a funny course. It's all between the 2 tires they have to run, the reds and the whites, and fuel. It's just one of those races that you can just about get it through with only 2 tire stops, but you've got to lift and coast and save fuel. Or if you run the 3 tire stops, you fill up with fuel each time, you can run flat out. And it's always been that sort of mixture. So there are lots of people stopping for tires and changing, and people going back to 20th and reappearing 5th when they stayed out as a safety car. But it's never been that good for racing. And after Colton Herta, who was the star of the day, clobbered an apex, cut a bit too much off, you could see the car hit a curb nastily and it broke something in the transmission. I'm not sure what. Alexander Rossi just cruised an easy win. He's had a terrible year or so. I think he hasn't won for about 2 years, Alexander Rossi. So he had an easy win for Andretti Motorsport. Of course, he's leaving to join the McLaren mob next year. But it was fairly dull. The only excitement was a very impressive second place by the Danish rookie, Christian Lundgaard, who did Formula 3, I think, in Europe. He certainly did Formula Renault Regional and won Formula Renault. The Brits, Callum Ilott and Jack Harvey, 14th and 20th. So, yeah, it was a bit of a snooze fest, I have to confess. But NASCAR
standard weekend, then, no, it's not. I'm being unfair. I quite like IndyCar.
Well, the NASCAR was entertaining in its own way. I mean, these great, big, hefty NASCARs being hurled around a road course, they're always a bit look like the fish out of water,
big
don't
shots,
they?
Weren't there? NASCAR?
Oh, gosh, yes. And it was wham bam all the way. Tyler Reddick actually was the class show the whole weekend. He was on pole, and apart from, various pit stops and pace cars, he dropped back a bit, but he dominated, came out to win. As it ended up with one of those green-white checkers because the pace cars had crashes, then another crash. But they had fires. Who was it? Chris Boucher. He'd been hit as well. They were just hitting each other everywhere. And I think there was some sound definitely on some heats, that sort of foamy stuff. I think that's what caught fire, some protective that had been broken loose. So he was in the pits, and we saw this smoke coming out. Couldn't see inside the car at all. And Chris Boucher just stayed in the car. I mean, he's got his pipe on with his air. I'm not sure quite where the air comes into the car, but anyway, he's and there was actually one moment when you saw a camera from behind the pit. There was proper flame in the passenger side of his footwell when the extinguishers were going in, and he just stayed in the car. And then they kept on blowing all the smoke out. He did one lap, still a pace car was out there, so you could do a slow lap. But he came back in again. They still had to put the leaf blowers, good thing to have in your pits, to try and blow all the smoke out. And he finished in the top 10 somewhere. So that was quite a thing. We had AJ Allmendinger, who won the race last year, and he won the Formula 2 race the night before at Indianapolis. So he won the Saturday race in the Xfinity class. And he was running in the top 3, but his cool suit had failed, and he'd run out of drinks. And he was just, you could see him in the car. They had his camera looking at him during the pace cars. And he was virtually sort of, why they didn't call him in or black flag him, I don't know. But he could have finished on the first green-white checker. He escaped the first corner, smash and crash 5 cars into 2 won't go, and would have been finished second, but he had another go on the last run, and I think he couldn't hold him off anymore. He finished about 8th. But the biggest shove was with Carl Larson. He'd had some problems. He'd had an accident. He'd been hit by the 10 car Almirola, been smacked into, again, turn one. Turn 1 was where it's all happening, because they come down that huge long Indianapolis straight, and there's just a 90 right. And the only visual marker is the big curb, otherwise it's all tarmac, And they were all just taking lunges and smashing into them. And Larson got hit by Almirola, which damaged the car. But he was out trying to finish. And all of a sudden, he must have had complete brake failure. I mean, the shunt was it was Ty Dillon. And it was so lucky, not for Ty Dillon in a way, for Larson, really. Because Ty Dillon turned into the apex. So he's now at 90 degrees to the main straight. And suddenly you saw Larson coming in. You're still doing well over 100 miles an hour. But Larson sort of managed to get it sort of 45 degrees sort of turning in. And they just hit absolutely side to side, which is probably the best sort of thing you can hit in the car, because both cars then move and deform. I mean, it was a massive impact. And yet, both drivers copped out. And apart from the 2 sides of the car being very badly damaged, it was an amazing escape.
So who won the race?
Tyler Reddick, as I said, he walked away with it. Really, he was the man to be. He's left his team. Sadly, which is a bit of a shame. He's moving elsewhere in 2024. But
well, I tell you what.
One final bit of the drama was Ross Chastain, the melon man in the 1 car, decided, and again, it wasn't in the rule book. He couldn't do it because they were literally about to be 5 wide on the second, turning into a 90 right. So he just went straight on, like at Monza or at Spa, we got chicanes, and rejoined through the correct route back on track and came out in the lead. So Tyler Reddick didn't quite know what to say. Reddick didn't know whether to sort of sit back and blow because he only had 2 laps to go. But he got past him properly, and then Chastain did get stuck back to about 20th. But I don't know what rule they did him on, to be honest, because if it's not in the rule book, you can't make up a place. What was he supposed to do? But I mean, he did look deliberate.
That's the FIA. The FIA.
Oh, yeah, the FIA. They'd take 6 months to sort that one out. At least NASCAR just say nobody. It may be, they probably said, yeah, okay, there's no rule against it, but we all know what you're doing. Come on, back exactly. You go.
Right, Tiff, I'm going to call your crash bang wallop of NASCAR and raise you with some crash bang wallop of BTCC at Knockhill, because that was entertaining. But I got to say, unless you're in a BMW or unless you're Ash Sutton, you're not going to win a race, because those BMWs were lethal. But Ash, I mean,
Ash was just out of this world. I mean, again, there wasn't that much overtaking. We've said about this cars at the moment, because they keep on. The commentators keep on and on about he's got the push to pass. He's got the push to pass.
Rubbish.
You speak to any driver, they can't feel anything happen. It's such a mild push that it doesn't pass you anywhere. But yeah, Ash Sutton took on. The rear-wheel drive BMWs are best suited to Knockhill, especially that it's uphill after the tight hairpin onto the main straight.
And the front-wheel drive. The speed difference of coming out of there was incredible.
So Ash Sutton decides, he went round the outside of pole sitter Jake Hill, round the out, held on, and then Jake got him back. But he won the second race, managed to stay. Jake thought he might have damaged a shock absorber because he went wide through the famous leaping chicane and had to let Jake by. But it was just thoroughly entertaining, just seeing these cars curb hopping, leaping, and locking brakes, braking with a hairpin, BMWs bashing into the back of the Ford of Sutton's Ford. And of course, he's winning the second race, the first win for that new team of the Ford. So they were delighted to have their first win. And the third race, I know, I don't like reverse grids too much, and I never allow a win in a reverse grid. It should be in brackets. It's not a real win. Yep. But it was like George Gamble. I mean, he had maybe the slowest of the BMWs, but he was on the back of the pack the whole race. He was always there. He hasn't raced for a couple of years. He's got all his money and his sponsors, and he's got the dream going to get into touring cars. And the lucky hand of John Cleland pulled out number 7 from the pot, which is where he'd finished in race 2. Put him on par. He drove a really good race. He was under pressure from, I forget, he was racing with one of the Toyotas, I think. Anyway, he came through the win. And the joy of winning, I know I say, when it's the reverse grid, but just to see he was in emotion, in tears, because even if a win is a win, I guess, even if Tiff Needell would say, well, it's not a proper win. I know, I've lucked into a few wins and a win it was. So there was a lot of joy at the end. It was a BMW Fest. It was a Ash Sutton masterclass on the oversteer on that front-wheel drive car. He's got it broadside. He stays on the throttle to bring it straight. He drives it like a lunatic.
He's a brilliant driver. I'd love to see him in sports cars next year. I'd love to see him just go.
Well, yeah,
no disrespect to PTCC at all.
No. Well, I would say Jason Plato should have gone to Le Mans 10 years ago, but he liked touring cars. He liked winning. He had money coming in, And Ash Sutton, yeah, I'd love to get him in a Le Mans car.
Do you know who Plato's sponsor is? Car sponsor is?
Well, it's the rich mob, isn't it?
Rich energy.
But it's a bit of a controversy because there's Rich UK with the long-haired strange person.
William Story, yeah.
But apparently the BTCC is linked to the global rich, allegedly. I don't know, but that's all a mystery, isn't it?
Plato didn't have the best of weekends.
He should have been in Spa. You see, Spa 24-hour race, that's where Jason Plato should have been doing. But he's talking about doing that next year, getting into. Finally, I've been kicking him for about 10 years. Go and do something different. Don't just stay and do it. It's a nice place, but he had a miserable. He's probably thinking, why on earth am I still here after he ended the gravel on race 1, he got hit in race 2. I don't know where he finished the reverse grid. But over at Spa, 24-hour race, always, great weekend. Great, if you're a Le Mans spectator that goes to Le Mans camps, then you should try Spa 24-hour one race if you've already been. It's a fabulous event. There were 8 cars on the lead lap still at the end of the 24 hours. Mercedes had their first win since 2013, so Mercedes have had a drought at Spa. So Raffaele Marciello and Julien Gounon and Daniel Juncadella. I can't do a Spanish sort of pretend accent, but I can't anyway. They had a good win at Spa. Spa, of course, I'm normally saying how my brother's team, Barwell Motorsport, won the silver category and they had a miserable weekend. They're down to only 1 car this year. They were on pole position for the Gold Cup class. And I won't try to explain all the different driver combinations, but there's a Gold Cup, there's a Pro Cup, there's a Silver Cup, and there's a Pro-Am Cup. So there's 4 different classes. But the winners of what was the Barwell's pole position class, and a great result when you think of the Lionesses winning the English football. The Iron Dames, these 4 ladies, won the Gold Cup. They'd qualified 10th in class of the 14 cars in the Gold Cup. They were 47th overall on the grid of 66 odd cars. They came through, no mistakes. They got to 18th overall and won the Gold Cup. So the 4 ladies won the class. So Brilliant. More good news for the women. That's where, the W Series, that's where Jamie Chadwick should have been out there. So great congratulations. Dorian Pipin, apologies always for my pronunciations, Rachel Frey, Sarah Bovey, and Michelle Gatting.
I know Sarah. She's lovely. She does a lot with Lamborghini. Why would Jamie Chadwick go there when she can make $500,000 a year and have all of?
Well, because when they tell you can't come back anymore, she's got to move. Anyway, that's really. That's in a Ferrari. That was in a Ferrari they were running.
Brilliant. So. Absolutely brilliant. Just on that, a couple of bits of housekeeping actually. So Formula One is it goes to Benelux at the end of August. So Belgium, then Holland. And you said Alice Powell's had a shocker. She hasn't really had a shocker. She's second in the championship, but she's got 68 points and she's 75 points behind Jamie Chadwick. So
I said she's had a shocker. She was thinking she'd win it this year. She was thinking she was going to win it.
I thought she would have a good chance to push Jamie all the way, but that's a done deal there. So where we go next? Formary in London.
Also, nobody didn't get much press. I think there were other things going on in London, a bit more important than Formary. A race on the Saturday, race on the Sunday. Jake Dennis, so he won there last year, the Andretti team. He had pole position both Saturday and Sunday, won the Saturday race, got beaten on the Sunday race by Lucas Di Grassi. A silly type course. The only track where they go indoors, though, don't forget that. But people were hitting each other. Sam Bird in the first corner, broke a bone in his wrist and had to finish the race. He didn't have a good weekend at all. But Stoffel Van Dorn, Mercedes are pulling out, aren't they, this year, at the end of their year. He's looking favourite to win the title. He got a third, I think. And anyway, So I think Stoffel Van Dorp's going to 1 round to go, 2 weeks' time in somewhere. I've lost interest. I've seriously lost interest. And of course, now that they've had the proper qualifying system, it's become more of a meritorious thing. So I used to hate that, when they put the slow guys out last, so they got pole position for the next race. So because it's now more meritorious, it looks like Van Dorn's going to cruise to the title for Mercedes.
I wish it would do well, but it's just not exciting at all. There's nothing exciting about it. Actually, they look fantastic and they're amazing drivers, but
but they hit each other a lot. That's exciting.
Is it though? You
don't want 30 miles an hour they hit each other. Bikes.
Yeah, okay. World Superbikes, Czech Republic.
Yeah, the only big bikes of the weekend was the Most, the Czech Republic. 2 wins for Toprak Razgatlioglu and his Yamaha, and 1 second place. So he's moving up. He had a bad start to the season, Toprak, but he's really coming back, and he's now closing in on Jonathan Ray's Kawasaki. Jonathan had no wins, I think the second, the third, and the fourth. And the Ducati of Alvaro Bautista still got a fairly healthy lead. He won the third of the 3 races. So the bikes, World Superbikes.
So that was it.
And the best place to be was Hungary. Okay, I'll never question it again. It was a brilliant weekend of racing in Hungary.
The best place to be next week, not really that much going on. There's World Rally Championships in Finland, I believe. Is it in Finland, Tiff?
Well, the Thousand Lakes. I mean, if you're a rally fan, if you're going to watch cars doing 100 miles an hour for about 5 miles from side to side on loose gravel, and then coming to blind yumps and staying full throttle and leaping about 200 yards. They've got that one. I don't know how far they do leap. I've guessed that. But there is one place where they've got it marked out. All the crowd go there and cheer for the longest leap. It is a big, if you want to go to Finland for a holiday, a bit like going to Hungary and going to Budapest, you've got to go to a rally. I think Finland would be a great one to go to. But I think we know the winner's going to be. So that's a bit boring. There's something called Rovenberg, maybe. But no, Britain, MotoGP at Silverstone. There, the Brits have got somewhere to go. You haven't been to a MotoGP event before, there's your chance this weekend at Silverstone. It'll be a great weekend. Of course, you've got these 2 young Brits in Moto3 to watch out for. Nice to have some young English lads. And of course, they'll be having a crack. No Brits in the MotoGP, but sure to be a good bit of problem. MotoGP, they're losing bikes for next year. Suzuki pulled out, and it's the Japanese of sort of dropping away from wanting to stay in MotoGP. I think next year there's going to be 6 Japanese bikes coming over, and it's going to be more the new lot from Europe, Ducatis and KTMs, and begins with an A.
Aprilia? Is that it?
Aprilia. So that's, it's quite a quiet weekend. And as they say, only the rally and then the MotoGP, then in America, IndyCar and NASCAR go back on the ovals, Nashville for the IndyCar, and Michigan for I think Michigan's the fastest oval because it's 2 miles, but they don't have restrictor plates. The very fast ovals, Talladega and Daytona, they have these little restrictor plates. They've only got about 600 horsepower instead of 800 horsepower. So Michigan is apparently the quickest NASCAR track. So that's where the speed will be this weekend.
And I'll tell you where it might be also this weekend, well, next Monday, which we will probably be dialing in live from Germany because we're off to see some not Formula 1 cars, some Group C cars, Porsche Group C cars, Derek Bell, Jackie Ickx, Jochen Mass, Vern Schappen, and of course Tiff Needell. So that should be pretty special, I think, Tiff.
Yes. I hope to be back race driving a Porsche 962 again.
Yeah.
From all those years of that great memories.
All those memories. So you carry on with your memories today, and
you carry on apologising to the Germans, and we'll see you next week.
I like the Germans.
No, you've dug the holes. No good. You dug the hole.
Thanks for joining.
Cheers, everyone.
See you.